What's up, everyone? Thank you for checking out and supporting this episode of Raised Geek. This week, we decided to get prepped for Sonic 3 by watching the original Sonic the Hedgehog movie from 2020, and we decided to give our initial thoughts of the first two episodes of Creature Commandos, the start of the new DCU. Will we continue with either of these series? Let's find out. I'm Chris, and this week I'm here with my buddy Don. How we doing, man?
Chris, what is up today, my friend? Everything's all right on this early December weekend. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, almost wrapping up the year. Almost wrapping up the year.
Year's coming to a close. Still feel like there's a lot of entertainment to take in before the end of the year, but we're gonna try to do that here. There's video games to play and movies to watch and comics to read, and we're running out of time.
And bad weather that keeps us inside and gives us plenty of opportunity to do it.
Yeah, but you know what? Earlier I was talking to you. We were talking about when we were gonna do this show today, and you were telling me, it's like 40 degrees outside. I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying in the house. Well, it's just about 40 degrees here in Chicago too. And I stepped outside. I was like, this feels like a crisp spring day in comparison to like the 12 degrees we had that felt like -8 earlier this week. I was like, man, this feels great. I almost want to just have a t-shirt on. But when it's 40 for you, like it's cold. I ain't going nowhere.
It was cold and it's raining. So that's a bad combo. So it feels like it's in its 30s.
Yeah. I don't know.
So we just kind of were like, yeah, I still did go out and go to the gym. And I thought about going to the comic book store, but I was like, I don't really want to go to that shopping plaza on a Saturday before Christmas.
Oh,
It's going to be packed and people and rain, and nobody knows how to drive in the rain down here. So I was like, nah, I'm going to go back home.
I just ran to Target earlier today to get a toy for my nephew, and, this is a Saturday in December. Yeah, you made a good choice. I was like, "Ugh, too many people in here." I had to, like, maneuver around all these people in the toy aisle and even just around the whole store, and the lines are all long. I was like, "This is why people love Amazon, so they don't have to come do these things anymore, come to big box stores on in the month of December before Christmas." I was like, "No, thanks." The rest of my list is Amazon only.
Pretty much. Yeah, unless I'm forced to I got to figure out all that stuff. It's going to be here before I know it, and I haven't planned for anything yet.
Happens, always happens.
Always does. Always does. But using that time to be able to sit still and just kind of like veg out a little bit, we did get this week the first two episodes of Creature Commandos dropped over on HBO Max or Max or
Mhm.
HBO. I don't know where it popped up. Some version of HBO. First two episodes of Creature Commandos, the first chapter of the DCU, James Gunn's DCU, is now upon us, and we watched these two episodes today
Good.
to kind of see. And initially in the week, we were like, I remember you were asking me, you were like, "Hey, you gonna watch that?" I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna watch it." And then next thing you know, I'm just like, "Hey, I'm watching this first episode." So
Yeah, I was kinda back and forth on if I would too, but I think the, um, FOMO or the intrigue of it just kinda got the better of me, and then especially when you told me that these were just 20-minute episodes, 23 to be precise, I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." Like, even if I don't love it, it's still just, committing 23 minutes, and I have a thing with length of shows and movies.
mhm.
Uh, we're probably not the only ones, but, like, 23 is a nice thing, like, I can do that. Like, even if I don't love it, I can do 23 minutes. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot more inclined to check it out. We were joking about how we both had the exact same feeling when we looked at Skeleton Crew over on Disney. And we're like, new Star Wars show, we should check this out. I'm hearing good things, Goonies in space and all this stuff. And you're just like, okay, let me check this out. And then I looked, first episode's like 44 minutes, and I was like, I don't want to watch that.
Even though we watched Creature Commandos back to back, and when you put them together, they're 46. So it's the same length, but it just feels different. It
I got
feels
I, I got two episodes in.
all right, it feels different. 2 23-minute episodes feels different than 144. Isn't that weird how our brains work?
Yeah. Well, usually it seems like sometimes shows they struggle to make the 44 minutes worth it. When it's 22, you kind of you got to put it all there, and it's got to, you got to have a complete story in some way. and move things along. And in 44, sometimes I feel like they just did it just to do it. And that's my struggle that I feel like since Netflix has kind of really like made it everybody want to do hour-long episodes.
But,
I'm just like, you don't have enough content for an hour. We sat through all those House of the Dragon episodes that were like an hour 15, and it would end and you're like, what had happened in this episode? Nothing. Why did this episode need to be an hour and almost an hour and a half? Like, why did I sit here and watch this House of the Dragon movie if nothing was gonna happen until the last 5 minutes?
yeah, the same way I'm inclined to invest my time into a 20-hour video game over a 100-hour video game just because I don't have the bandwidth sometimes for 100-hour video games, even though I'm in the middle of one right
I
now.
was about to say, as we're sitting here playing Metaphor,
Yeah.
Refantasmo.
But every now and then I'll make an exception, but usually I'm just like, ugh, I just don't have the mental calories to expend on that long of a game and then long of a TV show, long of a movie. Um,
Yeah.
I don't just a thing. But 23 minutes, good for me.
Yeah, so how'd you feel about the start of this DCU project? It's a cartoon. For those that don't know, I didn't even look up. I guess I'm not prepared for this at all. I didn't even look up what it was about. It's
In your defense, you didn't know I was gonna watch it too, and we just
true.
figured out we'll talk about this about an hour ago.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't necessarily think about putting the write up in there, but it is basically a continuation of it really feels like a continuation of the Suicide Squad movie that James Gunn did. I mean, we have Amanda Waller, we have Senior Flag,
What?
we have Weasel, some of the similar characters. They're immediately talking about Project Starfish.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So it's
I
basically a Suicide Squad 2.
kinda it's in that same vein, and just before we even get into the show, I just wanna see your thoughts on this being the first entry kind of into James Gunn's DCU and like his first chapter, he's nicknamed Gods and Monsters. This is literally the first thing of that before Superman. Like,
Yeah.
it's an animated show with a, C-list, little known characters kind of spiraling out of Suicide Squad to a degree. But is this like, it's just very unorthodox, doesn't it seem? Like the Marvel universe, not to, I know it's hard not to compare Marvel and DC, but like when they started their whole thing, they were like ground floor Iron Man. He's the anchor of our world. He's the anchor of our story we're gonna tell. We're gonna build this whole thing around him. DC comes in, James Gunn trying to like get away from all the Snyder stuff and all the Justice League and all that stuff. All that's in the past, mostly, except for the stuff he was involved in.
Right. Yeah.
The first foot in the door here in my new DC universe is an animated show on Max called Creature Commandos, featuring people like Weasel and the Bride of Frankenstein and Dr. Phosphorus and all these C-list DC characters that, the layman at home has no idea who they are. They know who Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman are, and then a bunch of others, but not these characters. It just seemed like a very, outside of whether this show was good or bad, it just seems like a very odd way to start your world. Even if it was a movie or something, that'd be a little more like, okay, I get it. He wants to start weird and like do it, but it's animated, it's on Max, and it's very adult. So it's like kids aren't even really supposed to be watching this. So like, is this just a weird way to start your tenure as the head of DC films?
As of right now, yes.
Duh.
I don't know because we're comparing it to the MCU, we don't know what the DCU is. We don't know how connected it really is going to be. We don't know how important. We know these things are all kind of happening in the same universe outside of Matt Reeves' Batman.
Mm.
That's the only one they've said is like Elseworlds and is somewhere else and doing and Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, that's over. We're never gonna have to worry about that. But so it's like his DCU is all in the same universe, but we don't know how connected they really plan on making those. So like, is shit that happens in Creature Commandos with the Bride of Frankenstein, are they gonna talk about that in Superman?
Oh, right.
Probably not. So, I
Probably.
mean, maybe they might have like a Easter egg on a TV and a news ticker on the bottom or something. There may be some like random line here or there to talk about this. And this was and where I think that probably is because this is a James Gunn, like, in the credits. This was developed for TV by him, written by him, and so is the Superman movie. So, I mean, I definitely can see little Easter eggs, but I mean, is Superman gonna be, like, keeping an eye on what's going on in this show? Probably not. So, I mean, it's a weird way because we don't know how they're gonna connect this yet. It's just like, well, why would you do it this way? It's just weird. I don't know if that made any sense, but
My whole point is, and I agree with you, it's just a very obscure start, you know? It feels like you wanna come in, hands waving in the air, screaming from the rooftop, "DC, my DC universe is here, everybody. Look, it's my new shiny movie. We're starting it off." And it's like, it's this little show on Max about characters you've never heard of, and that's the start of his world.
see, and I think he's just doing that for, like, us, the comic book people who know these characters, and Superman's clearly gonna be the mainstream start for this, and then it's gonna come down to that. So I think if anything, this is just kind of like an appetizer for us, the hardcore, the people who know, the people who are gonna pay attention to those Easter eggs and are gonna understand all the references even in this show to Peacemaker and all of the references that were already made in the first episode of this one. So I think I still feel like this isn't necessarily
It
this
is.
might be the official, but it's not the official, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it does, but I don't know. I just
It
wanted
is
to,
weird.
yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. It's a little weird, but I mean, sure, I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Probably. I'll probably keep watching. I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm gonna remember that it exists
Well,
after
then
this conversation.
I'll ask you first. What did you think of these 2 episodes? Just because it came out, started. There's 2 episodes out now on Max. Uh, I gotta assume it's probably 8 to 10 episodes, something along those lines. What'd you think of it? What'd you think of this show so
It
far?
was it was fine. It was really and kind of why I said it with, like, Suicide Squad, it was more Suicide Squad. So, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Suicide Squad. See how many times I can say that here in the first 10 minutes, but, like, I wasn't the hugest fan of his movie, and this is more of that. I did enjoy Peacemaker, which was kind of an offshoot of that. All of these are kind of connected into his, like, Suicide Squad universe, but I didn't really his movie was fine, but and we podcasted about it back on the time, so you can go all the way back and hear what we thought about the Suicide Squad back in the early days. But, I mean, it was fine.
Well,
Will I think about it much past today? No. Will I remember when a new episode drops until you remind me? Probably not. Like, I don't know if this is anything that I need to watch.
mhm,
Not saying that I won't, but it just was fine.
yeah, okay,
How'd you feel?
I got you. Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I was just shocked at how, and I'll be the first to admit I didn't, uh, super love Suicide Squad either. I thought it was fine. I thought it was okay. Something I've ever watched again or have had the urge to really watch again. It was just like James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy just turning up the violence, turning up the whatever. He just loves these misfit groups, and this is just now an animated version of that. So now he's done Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel, Suicide Squad for DC, and now Creature Commandos for DC again, which is animated and just kind of a offshoot of that, which you just kind of said. So I don't know, something about him just loves these misfit weird characters that he just wants to do. Um, so I didn't feel like the super originality that I was looking for in this. The only thing about it is, like, it's a bunch of characters I'm meeting for the first time mostly. Like, you and I read comic books. I don't know a lot of these characters, or if I do, I've seen them. Obviously, Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein, I know they're DC characters, but have I read a bunch of them? No. Have I do I know a lot about Dr. Phosphorus? No. Um, so, I guess I guess I thought I'm along the same lines as you. I thought it was okay. I thought some of the action was cool, like the couple little fight scenes in the first one and the second episode where the bride is fighting like the lady from Thesmaria, or
Yeah.
the action's cool for animation. And because we've talked about in animated shows, you can do a lot with that fight choreography that you can't really do in live. So I thought that was cool. James Gunn is still very obsessed with music in his stuff. Like he plays music, like that doesn't seem like it should fit over action pieces. At Guardians, that's what he did in Suicide Squad. He's doing that in this show too. Um, I don't know. It's I was engaged enough where it's like, okay, I can watch this. I also think shows like Invincible have set the bar really high for animated stuff where it's like comparing I compare everything to Invincible now when it tries to be like edgy adult animation. I'm like, it's okay, but it's not as good as Invincible. So maybe that's just on me
Right.
because nothing isn't as good as Invincible when it comes to adult animation.
It's true.
Uh, but um, I don't know. I'm not mad I watched them. If they stay 20 minutes, I'm sure I can make it through another 6 episodes and see what they do and see where they go. So I don't know.
Yeah, I did like that they're connected, that we kind of went like each episode kind of was I mean, that first episode was really just kind of like an introduction back into this world. It was Amanda Waller grabbing Rick Flag Sr. and saying, "Hey, we need you to take these monsters," and that's why they were calling them not Task Force X, but Task Force Monsters or Task Force M. And they were taking these kind of like supernatural beings, and he was going to lead them basically the exact same way, basically as a Suicide Squad, and they were going to some country to protect the princess. And that was really the main idea of that episode, was just really setting them into place, and then initiating the villain from Themyscira
Yeah, yeah.
and the sons of Themyscira. I know I'm saying that wrong, um but yeah, just kind of introducing a lot of the characters, and that was really it. The second episode is when we kind of really got into, you know, the bride.
Her backstory.
This was really her episode where she was kind of on her quest. This was her home country. This is where she was created, and they kind of retold her version of Frankenstein and what happened with that and how she was created. And yeah, and with the music and stuff, by the end of the second episode, the way that they did that kind of like montage at the end, I did get kind of a little bit more into the show. Like that was done really well. So I mean, like I said, it kind of still got me a little bit.
I was entertained by her origin story.
Yeah.
Invested me in her, and they showed at the end of this episode, like, scenes from the next episode. Seems like they're gonna do the same thing with the GI robot and how he came to be in his past, and if they kinda go through that with each character and make me care about these characters, maybe by the end of this season, I'll be like, "Alright, I'm invested. I like everybody." Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's fine. That's that's kinda where I wasn't blown
Yeah.
away. It's just a fine
I,
watch.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
entertained. That princess is totally a bad guy, right?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, she's evil.
Okay. I was like, it was pretty obvious, like, soon as she walked in, and immediately it was just weird because she walked in and she's just like this young, hot princess. And then she's immediately looking at the old man going, "Yeah, I want to bang you." And I was just like, okay, she's bad.
Yeah. It's also weird that starting out DC's whole world, they're starting off with a cartoon that's in both episodes has had sex scenes.
Very graphic.
Very graphic. I didn't expect to see Bride of Frankenstein boob in the second episode. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah,
Or
this is
thrusting.
not the
Yeah.
kids are
Dr.
definitely
Frankenstein thrusting we got in the second episode.
right. So the kids are definitely gonna be introduced to DC through Superman. They ain't watching this show, or they shouldn't be. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, and with that, I just can't imagine this really having anything to do with
No, and you know what?
DCU.
Even Gunn himself has said, even though there may be some connection that we mention or whatever, like he wants to make all these projects stand alone in a way where you can enjoy Superman without seeing Creature Commandos, and you can enjoy Supergirl when it comes out if you didn't see Superman, or if you're not ready for whatever's next, Peacemaker. It's like you don't have to watch these things to enjoy them
I
now.
hope so.
I don't know how much I believe him on that. We'll see.
So I was
But
gonna say, I don't believe him,
yeah, yeah.
but because I know that Warner Brothers wants MCU level success.
Like, sure, right.
And that's what James Gunn's there to do because he was part of the MCU success. So James Gunn is there for Warner Brothers to get their MCU. So it's like James Gunn can say that all he wants because he thinks that's what he wants to hear, but I just have this feeling that we're gonna be watching Superman, and we're gonna be a couple movies into this thing, and it's gonna automatically already be they're gonna start dropping shit. I mean, like Supergirl, they're gonna say stuff. They're gonna talk about stuff that happened in Superman, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Superman has already things about Supergirl in it. Like, I don't believe him. I want to believe him because that's what I want, and that's what we were talking about earlier before we started recording. Is like, I just want to all these movies just to be their own movie. I want a Batman universe. I want a Superman universe. I want a Flash. Just give me and let them create their worlds. And then, if these things are successful, you can take the most popular ones and then you can like do a multiverse story where they all have to come together from different Earths for
Yeah.
one big bad, and put them into a movie. But don't build towards it. Just give me good movies about the one character.
Like, don't be talking about Gotham City in the Superman movie. You know what I
Right.
mean? Don't be like have a newspaper talking about Batman. Like, just be Superman without having to talk
Right.
about.
Yeah, because I don't even have it in me to watch all of the MCU movies that are coming out. Like all the ones that are announced, I'm not gonna go see all of them. Like I'm just not. So like don't try. And I know MCU keeps saying that they're trying to walk some of that back as well. So I'm hoping that they're being truthful. But when they start getting this Doom thing going, then they'll be like, gotta watch it all. Gotta
Right.
watch Agatha season 2 to learn about Doom's identity.
All right. Yeah.
It's be frustrating. But back to Creature Command. But yeah, it was fine. I was surprised by the level of adult. I was surprised by the level of violence, and I was surprised that, like I said, this was the introduction to the DCU, and something that they put right in the trailer. Like it's they're being very blatant that saying this is the start of the DCU, which, like you said, is just weird. But yeah, it was fine
James Gunn isn't shy about letting you know this is his project because he puts himself animated right in the title sequence
for
there at the
no reason.
for no reason.
Like, why is he there? Like, you're showing all the characters and introducing them like you do in a normal cartoon or in an opening, and then James Gunn's just sitting at a desk writing, and you're just like, "Why are you there?"
It's a vanity thing. I'm sorry to say, like, I don't know with that guy. Uh, Personality wise, maybe he seems a little weird to me. Might make fine superhero movies, but just like, come on, dude. We don't need your face in this opening thing as an anime. We get it. It's your world. You're in charge.
Mhm.
Feige doesn't show his face in fucking MCU movies. It's just like stay on the sideline. Your name in the credits is enough. We don't need to see the animated version of you at the end of every credit of this show. It's just very
I mean, Feige was in She-Hulk.
he was.
Remember at the end when she came out of your Disney Plus app and what, busted into the writers' room? Huh?
He appeared on it.
I could have swore that she like busted into the.
I know she did that, but I didn't know if he like was
I thought
actually.
he was in that room with that robot when she started talking with that robot.
It's possible.
I know he got at least name dropped if he wasn't in it.
Yep. Well, that's fine. I pat yourself on the back, James. I get it. We get it. But to go to the level of putting the animated version of you in the credits is
I know.
like, all right.
I know. But I did enjoy the second episode more, so it does have me a little bit more. I enjoyed the bride's like kind of origin. I enjoyed how they did it. I enjoyed the fight with her. Granted, didn't know the bride could fly. She was flying in this, right?
Or
When she
maybe
was fighting the bad guy.
it's just jumping really high.
That was
I
a
don't
hell of a jump. It felt like she was like in control of that jump.
maybe.
They just kept going up. I was like, okay, I guess the bride can fly. But yeah, I enjoyed the fight with her and the bad guy.
And even the future of her, what's gonna come with her and Frankenstein, who's like voiced by David Harbour, them like fighting through the ages.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
That was the first time like they were doing that big fight scene at the end of that second episode. And then I thought, which apparently they walked back, but I thought they really were going to kill both of those characters. I
Mm,
thought Fish Girl and Bride were both dead because the way that they were laying on the ground, and Fish Girl got shot in the head, so I kind of thought she was dead.
mm,
And so I was like, "Oh shit!" And that was when I really started to sit up a little bit at this, and I was like, "Okay, what are we doing here?" And I was a little bit more intrigued. And then they cut to that like montage where they cut in the music, and they're showing them fighting through all the eras, and starting in the 1800s all the way up to like the 90s. And I was like, okay, this is pretty freaking cool. And I really liked that, and I sat up. And then, of course, they kind of walked it back, and they were both still just like alive and being captured. And I was like, oh, thought we
Yeah.
were like gonna be some real stakes here. I thought, like I said, we're gonna get some Invincible level of like realism, of
And
like shit like goes down in Invincible. And I thought that we went down with something, but we didn't, at least yet. But that whole fight, that whole montage, the ending of this episode did make me sit up and pay more attention than I did, so than I expected to.
yeah. Like I said, I won't make this a priority watch weekly, but I'll remember that it's on at some point and throw it on, and I'm sure I'll get through this season and see what they're cooking here with this.
Absolutely. So let us know what you thought about there it is. You let us know what you thought about Creature Commandos. If you did give it a watch over on Max, if you're going to keep watching it, you know how to do that, by hitting us up on social media at Raise the Geek, or shooting us an email at raisethegeek@gmail.com. Be happy to let us know your thoughts. Or if you're over on YouTube, drop a comment down below and let us know what you thought about Creature Commandos, because I'm really curious for more opinions on how people are feeling about this. I haven't heard a lot, haven't seen a lot about it yet. Just that people were saying that it was out, but outside of that, I don't know what level of excitement this show has, so I'm definitely would love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, agreed.
And then we decided to watch Sonic the Hedgehog. We both watched Sonic the Hedgehog last night. Getting
Mhm.
ready, Sonic 3 comes out in a couple weeks.
Right
On
before Christmas, just in time for all the koi sales.
all the
Real
toy sales. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. They pushed this to It's funny because like the original one came out like in February, just kind of like the dead zone. And then I want to say the second one came out like in the summer, so they're like, okay, more and more confidence for this thing.
Yeah.
And now they got Christmas for this one. Yeah, it was February, April, and now they're like, hell, we're going right in there with Christmas for
Mm,
Sonic 3. So that definitely they're excited about this franchise, and I want to say each one's gotten bigger,
yeah. Yeah,
definitely from a movie standpoint, but
it's definitely a money-making franchise at this point, I think, for kids and just in general. But yeah, this I think is your I don't know how many viewing you've seen this a couple times. I'm a first timer. This is my first time watching Sonic. Not that I ever had a reason not to watch it or to watch it. It's just kind of one of those that just was like, fell through the cracks. But now I can see this franchise has some kind of legs. They're about to release their third movie, and it's just
and
kind
there's
of
a Knuckles show.
a Knuckles show, right? That was on Paramount, and um, it's kind of just like a nostalgia thing, I guess, for people our age.
Mm.
Sonic game that came out when we were kids, like, I don't know, were you a big Sonic the Hedgehog game player growing up?
No, I didn't have a Genesis.
Me either. So that
We were
that's
Super Nintendo kids, so we didn't really I was always aware of Sonic. I always wanted to play Sonic. I would play Sonic whenever I would go to a store. If I went to anyone's house with a Genesis, I mean, I played a shit ton of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, just going to random kids' houses,
that'd be cute.
um, who had it. So I played a lot of Sonic for not ever owning a Sonic game until I was an adult when they became multi-platform.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Never had a Genesis except for I never had a Sega except for Saturn. I am a Saturn owner.
Saturn.
A former Saturn owner. I don't even remember if they had a Sonic game on there. I'm sure they did. I don't even remember what the flagship game for Saturn was, like fucking Knights. No, that was Dreamcast.
No, Knights was Saturn, I think.
I think it was maybe it was Saturn. Anyway, uh yeah, not a big Sonic player because for that very reason, not owning a Sega. I always just thought Sega was like weird. It's like Nintendo rules. Who plays Genesis? But I don't know. I liked Sonic. Just Ed Sonic is just like running fast, and he's a pop culture icon now. He was made by Sega to kind of be their face of their company.
Mhm.
Mario is to Nintendo, and he kind of became that, did he not? Like he was on the same level as like as recognizable as Mario or anything.
No, I think there was brief periods of time where he, I think, was the number one. I
So
mean, the
bad.
Genesis was like the number one system for a long time, and I mean, I know I was watching a documentary on one of these streaming services about video games, and they were talking all about the. I want to say it was. I think Netflix has a video game something or other, but I remember watching one about the Genesis and Sonic just being such a huge portion of like them designing Sonic, them basically going for that, and he really became, especially of the 90s. Mario wasn't cool in the 90s.
Right.
Mario was like in the 80s, but in the 90s he wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sonic was for bad boys.
yeah. Until we got Mario 64 in 96, but Sonic was around before that, and he was it until, like I said, Mario came back with 64, and then Sonic kind of, I want to say, kind of slowly started fading in the late 90s.
Well, because Sega also started fading.
Exactly.
Like,
So, yeah, but I mean, Sonic was there was a chunk of time in the early 90s where Sonic was the number 1, like, video game mascot.
I mean, 'cause you added in Tails, and Tails was cool now, he's got a little sidekick, and then all of a sudden, Knuckles comes along, and he's fucking cool, and they got a Sonic and Knuckles game, and people are just like, "It's Sonic and Knuckles in the Sonic universe, it's so cool. He's such a bad boy, he
And
eats children."
you had to put the Sonic 3 cartridge into the Sonic and Knuckles because the game was too big.
Yeah,
Like, what is happening? Sonic CD. Yeah, no, Sonic was cool. Like, for never even really having too much to do with him, he still was cool if you grew up at that time.
and I didn't have a Sega, but I still remember watching the Sonic Saturday morning cartoon, and I remember there being 2 of them. Do you remember there being 2? There was 2 Sonic cartoons, one was, like, more kiddie,
Yeah.
and one was more, like, a little older.
Yeah. There was one I know they used to play in the morning on USA,
Okay.
and I used to watch that one almost like every morning in the
Yeah.
90s. Like, it would be eating my cereal, watching Sonic the Hedgehog, eating chili dogs.
Well, yeah, this was, like, an example of like, it's the same thing as, like, there was 2 Aladdin games, like, one on Genesis and one Super Nintendo that were different, and, like, we couldn't understand it, but there was, like, 2 Sonic cartoons. I remember there being one, and I didn't like the older one because I was like, "Yeah, that one's dark, I like the funny one." But there was, like, literally 2
Yeah.
Sonic cartoons, and I just remember loving that show.
Yep.
Funny.
Yeah, I don't remember a damn thing about it except for him wolfing down chili dogs, but I know I watched a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons.
Like, well done.
Yeah, Sonic's a is a beast, and it's crazy it took till 2020 for him to get a movie.
So
And then I remember when they were coming out with this movie, it was like Jim Carrey's gonna be Robotnik. You're like, okay. And then they start naming, James Marsden's being in it, which I know he's a big character actor, and I mean, he was Cyclops, and I've that dude's always great. He stole the show in the Superman Returns movie. Like, I remember him being in that movie and him just being more super than Superman, and I was like,
he should have been Superman.
he should have been Superman, yeah, and he didn't do X-Men 3 because he wanted to be in Superman Returns, and yeah, he should have been Superman. That would've been cool. But, like, this movie really got a lot of, like, weight, and that was why I went to see it. It was the last movie I saw before the pandemic in theaters. I was like, "Let's just go see this." Like, this there feel like there's something there with this, and it was kinda crazy to, see that there was. But we can't start talking about Sonic
Mm.
without talking about Ugly Sonic, because
Yeah.
this almost didn't happen. We wouldn't be on Sonic 3 if they would have kept with that original design of Sonic. And if you don't know, you can probably find the trailer on YouTube, the Ugly Sonic movie trailer, but the original trailer they dropped at the end of somewhere in 2019 for Sonic the Hedgehog movie had a weird humanoid type Sonic,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Here you go," and everybody freaked out.
Everybody freaked out. This was a movement.
Yeah.
This was a moment in time that, like, transcended just nerd culture.
Mhm.
This was probably on fucking CNN and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
the outpouring of, fan unsatisfaction, uh
Hate.
hate, yes, it was hate, like and I remember even watching it and, like, just fucking roasting it and being
Yeah.
like, "What is that?" Like, that original Sonic had, like, human eyes and human teeth and a weird facial structure, and it's like, "Guys, Sonic is a classic look, like, why go away from that? Why make this? And it was just so weird. Like, go find it. Like, if you've never seen it, go find original Ugly Sonic movie. And even more important than that is this was like one of the first and only times, or maybe it's happened since, I don't know, but like fan outcry and fan hate actually got a studio to change what they were doing, delay this movie, go back and change the look of their multi-million dollar project. And they actually listened and said, if we go through with this, if we keep this look and don't listen to everybody, this is going to tank us. And they were right about
100%.
but this never happened. Like, this has never happened before where fans being like, we don't like it. You got to change it or we're not going to go see it. And the studio just being like, okay. And they did. And it's like, that was amazing. That was amazing to see. Just like, no, we're not accepting this. Like, you have to change this or else.
Because there's that much love for this character. There was
Yeah.
that much love for Sonic the Hedgehog that they're just like, no, we're not gonna. You can't do this movie like this. You just can't do it. It's wild. It was wild. It was a moment in time, man.
Yep.
It was wild.
It changed. The Sonic you see today and Sonic 1, 2, and 3 would not exist without fans being like, no, just make them look like the video game. Make them look closer to the video game. That's what we want. We don't want this bullshit. And they're like, okay, we got to do it. And they did it.
Yeah, and I mean the new design that they did was perfect.
Yeah, looks amazing. Like how someone there couldn't tell that before we had to tell you that you had to do that you should do that. It doesn't register with me, but it's like I guess it took fans being like, no, you guys got it wrong. Go back.
They did that same thing with the Ninja Turtles.
Hmm.
Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. Those designs are horrible.
Sure.
And people said that they were horrible, and those movies didn't do as well as they would have done if they would have adjusted those designs. I guilty pleasure. I mean, that first Ninja Turtles movie, I do watch that from. If it's on TV, I will watch it. I watched the end of it the other day.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Second one, not so much, but that first one was good, and I'll watch that one. But those designs are still horrible.
They are.
And if they would have had a better design for those turtles, we might still be making those movies.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you just want to tell the studios like, why are you getting cute? Like, why are you trying to do your own little weird takes on things? Like, the old saying like, don't fix it if it's not broken. Like, Sonic's design is great. Don't make it look weird. They didn't make that Mario movie and make him look like change his face and everything. No, they just made Mario because they know give people what they want in
Yeah,
kids.
they're iconic look. Sonic was in like been around since like the late 80s and early 90s. We're talking 30 years that this character's existed in our culture at this point of this movie, and you want to make him look different?
What are you doing?
What are you doing here? You know, play with Robotnik. Yeah, I would have never pictured Jim Carrey being Robotnik. Never in a million years. Watching him in this movie,
Mhm.
he nailed it, man.
Yeah. Well, before we get into it, just tell them about this movie a little bit if you have it. Do you have a
Yes,
um,
I got the little write up about this movie. So,
uh,
based on the global blockbuster video game franchise from Sega, Sonic the Hedgehog tells the story of the world's speediest hedgehog as he embraces his new home on Earth. It's a live action adventure comedy where Sonic is taking refuge on Earth when Sonic uses his incredible speed and accidentally knocks out the power in part of the United States. He catches the attention of Dr. Robotnik and must stop him from using his unique power for world domination.
Mhm.
So this movie is basically a buddy film road trip.
Yeah.
It's a very traditional story arc. We've seen these movies done a million times. Buddy flick, two friends go out on the road and have an adventure, and that's pretty much what this movie was. It was just a road flick done kind of perfectly. Like, I enjoy this movie.
Yeah, I was listen, I just already said that it was my first time watching it, and I was reluctant to watch it because like, it's gonna be stupid. It looks whatever, like it's a kids movie, blah blah blah, same old story. So sitting here and watching this for 88 minutes, which again, going back to our length of things, helps. Thank you.
100%.
There's episodes of Game of Thrones and House of Dragon, like you said, that are longer than this.
Yeah.
Uh, but man, I was thoroughly entertained by this movie, and I didn't expect it. Like, it had me. I was just like is this the best movie I've ever seen? Is this whatever? No. It's clearly made for kids or younger people or people like our age who are really into Sonic, but I'm having a good time. This is well written. This is well acted for what they're asking for from the script. Like, there's enough comedy in it and action in it and just fun sequences to be like a fun blockbuster film. And it's just like pleasantly surprised that I had so much fun watching this.
They did a great job of making you care about that little CGI hedgehog.
All right.
You cared that he was lonely. You cared that he had no one to high five when he hit a home run by himself and he was alone.
Right.
He had no friends, and you felt that, like, throughout this whole movie, his, like, loneliness carried you through this whole thing that you cared about this little CGI hedgehog, and the actors around James Marsden is always great, and he did a good job of communicating, it was one of those movies where there's a fake character, and, obviously, back in the '80s, it would be, like, puppets or whatnot, but you did this thing where you're like, "I wish I had a Sonic the Hedgehog."
Right. Where's my little blue guy
Yeah,
friend?
I want a little blue guy to be best friend. Like, I find myself jealous of James Marsden watching this movie because 'cause I'm like, "Why does he get to be friends with Sonic?"
Why couldn't Sonic find me?
Yeah, right? Like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just they make you feel for that hedgehog in a
Yes.
way that works.
Ben Schwartz was good as Sonic,
Yeah,
just really
yeah, ADHD Sonic, him
well,
just having 0 focus on anything.
right.
And yeah, Ben Schwartz just killed it doing that voice. He was like the perfect cast to bring this character to life. And he just there were multiple times in this movie where I would just start laughing.
Yeah.
There were
Mhm.
just really funny parts in this movie.
No, yeah, and a lot of that has to do with what you were just touching on before you did your thing was, Jim Carrey.
He was rare for man.
You say what you want about Jim Carrey. He owned owned this character. Owned this character, he owned the movie, like and maybe I have to think about Jim Carrey in a different way because I think about a lot of Jim Carrey movies, I'm like, "He's good. He's funny. He's
Mhm.
good at a lot of things." Like, I can name a lot of things. I was like, Jim Carrey is a treasure in a way, and this movie kinda, I think, got him out of retirement, and I think if you look back, the only things he's done have been Sonic 1, 2, and 3 since this came out. Like, he doesn't really wanna act, but they're like, "Hey, here's the script for Sonic 3." He's like, "I'm in." And he, like, wants to keep doing these, but he's, like, kinda, like, slowed down on it the stuff he does. But just like, dude, so freaking funny. There were so many times in this movie where I laughed, like literally laughed because of his delivery of lines, the way he's acting, his, of course, like, body humor he's always had through his whole career was
Yeah.
on point. It was like, dude, you owned this. I
Yeah.
was very, very happy with his performance.
It was like rare form Jim Carrey. It's like a Jim Carrey that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanna say he fully retired from movies, but said he will keep doing Sonic movies.
Mhm.
I don't know why, he just must be having a fun,
Yeah. He just wants to do them. He just wants to be this character. Yeah.
but the yeah, there were lines there were just parts in this movie where he would just kill me when he pretended to be in a jug band,
Yeah.
when he was standing on that porch, he's like, "Oot, oot, oot." And,
Just the oh,
the
yeah,
what?
he had a couple different lines, like the one where, he's chasing around Sonic in the plane at the end, and they're going through the rings and going through time, and Sonic is running up the pyramid, and he was just like, "You can't be up there. That's one of the 7 wonders." Oh, shit. And then he's like, "And don't even think about running away. It's bad for your joints. They proved it." Like, come on,
Yeah, he
dude.
just he just went on things. I died both times that he got scared. When
Oh,
Sonic first jumped out and he screamed,
that was great.
that made me laugh, and when he was doing that giant dance in the
Mhm.
ship and his, like, partner or his assistant just was standing there with lattes
Yeah, on
and he
screen.
got scared, like, both of those times made me laugh. I love the way you make them. The other joke that always kinda makes me laugh, I thought James Marsden and Jim Carrey had great chemistry.
Sure, in the few scenes they had, yeah.
The few scenes, like, they just worked off of each other so well and just kind of, like, always got zingers, but I know there was that one part where he was just sitting there and he was, talking about how he was, spitting out formulas when you were spitting up formulas, and James Marsden was like, "I was actually breastfed." He just got real close and said, "Rub that in my orphan face." I was like,
Well,
"That's so random. That is so random for to be like, why is that line in this movie?"
very quick-witted, very fun.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were so many moments in here that I was just writing down that Jim Carrey cracked me up in this movie, and yeah, it was great. He just owned it, and I would have never pictured him being Robotnik
Right.
and being and pulling it off in a way, like you're thinking Eggman and you're thinking they have those long skinny legs and stuff, and then you're like, Jim Carrey's gonna do it, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah, what's that about? But and pleasantly surprised with his portrayal. I think, uh, like you just kinda used top form Jim Carrey, just
Yeah.
like back to Ace Ventura Mask level.
Right.
He pulled out all those same mannerisms and stops and chops and Dumb and Dumber and just like classic Jim Carrey you think of. This was up there with some of those performances.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. It was classic Carrey, and it helped carry the movie, but like I said, everybody pulled their weight in this movie, and just like I said, I have fun watching this movie. It's been a while since I made it all the way to the end. I watched the beginning of a lot of movies and then get distracted and never go back. Um, but yeah, and we've said Ben Schwartz, there was a line he said in there that killed me when they were doing that car chase. They're
Well,
driving down the highway and Robotnik's got the tank chasing them, and there's just so many little lines in this movie, but when Tom had Sonic drive that van or drive the truck and Sonic just goes, "I feel like Vin," and he goes, "I feel like Vin Diesel. It's all about family time."
yeah, he would just throw little lines in there. He was funny too. Sonic was
He just was cracking me up, but yeah, when he said, "It's all about family time," I died. I was laughing. I forgot about that line. That line cracked me up.
yeah. Is The Rock president?
Yeah. And you're like, "At some point, that might be true."
Right? He's predicting the future. Did you pick up on a lot of Easter eggs in this movie just as like Sonic fan or just like nudges and stuff? Like he ate a chili dog at that bar and then talked about it later. I think they called it a chili dog, and I'm like, that's not even from a game. That's just from the that's just from the cartoon.
Yeah, I
So
might they might have worked it in at some point, but yeah.
yeah, they said he mentioned chili dogs, which was funny. I feel like they kept poking fun at the mushroom world as making fun of Mario. Was that
I
what's
could see that. I could see that.
hilarious? The mushroom world sucks. I don't wanna be around mushrooms. I felt like that was, like, little digs at Mario just because obviously that's Sonic's
The
biggest
Mushroom Kingdom.
yeah.
I could
Um,
see that. I never thought about that, but that
I was like, "Are they making fun of Mario here?" It feels like they are. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Just, I'm sure there's more
oh,
forget
I'm sure there's a ton. I noticed the town that they were in was the Green Hill, which
Mhm.
is Sonic, that, traditional first level in almost every Sonic game is the Green Hill Zone. So
Yeah,
I know that was in there. I loved the fact that at the end of the movie, after the kind of climax of the movie and you're kinda coming back down, they did the piano Sonic music.
that's when they were painting their house, they were playing the Sonic song.
Yeah, but just the real soft and in piano, and it almost sounded pretty, and I was just like, "Oh," it just gave you all that rush of feels right there at the end. It was perfectly placed. It was perfectly done in that way.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things that are perfect about this movie, but that was like from a Sonic, like, Easter egg that was just done
Mhm.
really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know a lot of Sonic to fully know.
Only other thing I noticed is those little characters at the beginning when it was young baby Sonic with, like, his owl mother. Maybe that's a thing from a game that I didn't know. I was like, "Why is Sonic being raised by an owl as a kid on this planet?" But, like, those little creatures that were trying to kill him, they looked like cheetahs or
Mm,
whatever Knuckles is, whatever
mm,
well, Knuckles is, that's what they all looked like with masks on, so I was like, "Ah, they're kinda foreshadowing maybe some Knuckles existence or something."
maybe.
Obviously, we know Knuckles exists in that universe now, being where we are, but, yeah, just a lot of stuff kinda packed in there for just a little elbow nudge to you, like, "Hey, hey, Sonic fans."
Man, that opening was so compact.
Yeah,
Like, he was like, "Hey, here's my town. This is where we are. Oh, yeah, I'm not supposed to run, but I do. I just wanna here's my oh, mom. Oh, she's dead. Okay. I'm
right,
on Earth." And you're just like,
but
"What was that?"
when she got hit with that arrow, I was like, "Holy shit," like,
Yeah,
his mom's already dead from an
yeah,
arrow to her side,
yeah. She took an arrow and then she, like, no sold it,
yeah.
and she was like, "Oh, Sonic." we're screwed. Here's some rings. You got to get out of here. Like it
Uh,
was so immediate. Like I was just like, man, they threw a lot at you in that opening segment. You're like, what am I about to watch? Uh,
Well, crazy.
yeah, but like I said, it was a very surprising movie. I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. All the little drones and the robots and the effects, and I loved the way that they worked the rings in. You know,
man,
obviously Sonic is, the rings are your health in the Sonic games. So having those sound effects when the rings fell off the building, but
yeah,
having them as like portals to another world and stuff, I thought that all worked really well as a way to kind of bring this lore,
yeah.
make it work in a movie.
No, yeah, because they could have just went the easy route and just made this a movie about like Sonic in Green Hills. Dr. Robotnik is just an evil doctor who lives in that world, and it's a big battle. But they kind of found an interesting, fun way to make it like he's an alien, he's gonna come to Earth so he can interact with James Marsden and human characters, and it's this CGI hedgehog mess about planet Earth. You know what I mean? It was an interesting take that worked. Like it didn't have to. It could have blown up and been like, this is nonsense. But they made it to the point where it's simple enough where you could understand and follow and be like, this is how Sonic gets to Earth and he's an alien and he finds this guy to be his best friend and they're just gonna have an adventure trying to get him home safe. It's like it all worked. It
Yeah.
all just you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed, like I said, I've enjoyed this movie. Even the Olive Garden product placement. So
Yeah.
they name dropped Olive Garden a lot in this movie.
A
A
couple
couple
times.
times. 2 or 3 times, and they said its slogan a couple times.
Maybe want some soup salad and breadsticks.
Right? A little bit.
Uh,
Little bit, little bit. But yeah, and now, you feel a little bit more interested in Sonic 2 now and seeing what they did?
I'm gonna watch it. I am gonna watch it, even if it's not as good, that's fine. I still liked this one enough to be like, "It's cool." The little post-credit sequence of Tails showing up too.
That's what I was gonna ask you if you were able to see that. I had to go watch that on YouTube because Paramount, I was watching it on Paramount and they kept shrinking it down and wanting to make me watch Sonic 2. And I'm like, no, I want to watch the credits for Sonic 1. And they wouldn't let me. I had to go find it on YouTube.
Well, this was also on Amazon Prime, and that's where I watched it. So, there it was watchable. Uh, I mean, if I would've seen this in the movies, that would've had me hyped. Be like,
It was
"Yeah,
hype.
Sonic
It
2,
was hype.
Tails,
Tails
hey,
jumped out and you're just like, yes.
Tails."
Yes.
Who doesn't love Tails? And so, like, having him and then also, like, the first credit sequence was Robotnik being alive and looking more like the Robotnik we know from the video games, bald head and the big crazy mustache, and Jim Carrey just owning it again. It's just like, "Oh, yeah. Give me some more. Give me part 2." Like we were talking about, part 3 is coming out here this year. So yeah, man, I'll do some more Sonic before we get there. I wanna catch up and maybe think about seeing Sonic 3 in theaters. We'll see how it goes.
Yep, I know we were discussing that, so we figured let's go on a Sonic adventure here for the month of December and watch some Sonic movies. But those are kind of our thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog. If you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. If you haven't, and you're still listening to us, go watch Sonic. It's pretty much on every streaming service, and it's a good time. I really feel like it's an easy 90-minute watch,
Well,
and you have a good time. It's funny.
it is funny. It's funny and just, not award-winning anything, but just a good time. Like an 88 minutes, you're gonna have a good time and you're gonna laugh, and it's like got a lot of shiny explosions. It's a blockbuster. It's for younger people, but older
Mhm.
people can enjoy it too. It's a family movie, I think. I think it's just like there's nothing really not to like about it. It's just not everything has to be, Schindler's List or
Right, right.
like this could just be a fun romp, 88 minutes of just fun. So
Yeah.
that's that is.
Well, let us know, as we said earlier, let us know what you thought about Sonic the Hedgehog. If you have any thoughts, any excitement for Sonic 3, any questions about Sonic 2, which we're most likely going to talk about next week. So let us know by following us on social media at Raise the Geek. Leave us some comments over there. If you're on YouTube watching us, hi. And leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought about Sonic or Creature Commandos, because most likely that'll all be grouped in here together. Or you can shoot us an email, raisethegeek@gmail.com, and let us know what you thought about Sonic the Hedgehog. If you're excited for Sonic 3, if you have any questions about Sonic 2, let us know so we can answer them next week when we talk about Sonic 2.
Absolutely. I am excited.
Absolutely. So as we push closer to Christmas and turn it into a Sonic miss. and
Sonic Miss.
Sonic miss, and we're gonna do some Sonic movies this Christmas, which is what the Paramount or whatever network movie studio does this wants Sonic to be the king of Christmas. So let's make that happen. But unless you have any final thoughts to jump in here with, I think that's going to do it for us this week. So for Raised Geek, I'm Chris.
And I'm Don.
And thanks for checking out the show.
Our geek is all we speak.